Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Straczynski. Thank you so much for joining us on episode number 98 of Cards Chat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Our guest today, he is an absolute mixed game poker powerhouse with over $1 million in career live tournament earnings. This past summer, he had his greatest achievement to date, winning his first bracelet in the 10K horse event at the World Series of Poker. He's got a few dozen tournament results dating back to 2005, but he makes his bread and butter in cash games, currently as a staple in the 80-160 game at Resorts World in Las Vegas. On today's show, we're going to get to know this man a little better. Andrew Yeh, welcome to the CardsChat Podcast.
Thank you, Robbie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to speak with you. And, I always say, we're going to get to know them a little bit better. And it's nice, it's we've played together before a little bit. We've spoken to each other a little bit, but it's good to have a chance to really dive a little bit deeper, learn who you are, your poker career, what you do at felt, away from the felt. So thanks for giving us the time. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Cool.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's start out with that first tournament result. I mean, I couldn't help but notice it was a biggie. You cashed in the Party Poker Million 4. That was back when it was on the big cruise ship back in the day. I think this is about 2005, 2006. So
that was actually not me. There's actually another Andrew Yeh that played a lot of online poker at the time.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, and he lives in Mesquite, and that's all of the online result stuff is all his. Not mine.
Everything on that? No, but it can't be. So it's because it's a Hendon Mob result. It's recorded there.
Yeah, but it's been there before I started playing tournaments. So.
Whoa! Yeah. No kidding. Okay.
Yeah, well, that was like way before.
That's very interesting because I looked up Andrew Yeh on Hendon Mob, and lo and behold, that is the first result that you have there. So wait a minute. So I tried to do my research. That's interesting. Maybe there's a different Andrew Yeh. When did you start playing tournaments?
I think my first result was the Caesars one. The Caesars 5th place finish in the Omaha 8 or better. That was my first actual recorded result that I know of.
And it's so 1 second. So this is like 2009
or 8, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 7.
Okay. So I'm not
around there.
Okay, I'm not completely off. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit, but we know Eric Dunny of the Hendon Mob. He listens to this podcast. So Eric, if you're listening, we gotta refresh Andrew Yeh.
Yeah, it's actually funny because I actually know this Andrew Yeh. He actually reached out to me one time, and we actually, talked to each other a little bit before, and because we noticed that our results were mixed together at the time. So this is like 10, 12 years ago.
Very interesting. Okay, so that was okay. So were you primarily an online poker player before starting to grind tournaments, or was it always just cash games?
It's always been live and cash games. And very, very little tournaments. I'm not an online guy. I actually really don't like playing online that much.
So why is that? I mean, so many of your contemporaries did go that route, whether it's online or just, starting the tournament grind. We've known about them, over the last 15, 20 years. You're in that same age group, but you've chosen a different path. Why is that?
Yeah, I just never found it. I found it too easy, like to be distracted while playing. Like I couldn't focus. No matter how many tables I played, I couldn't focus. But when I play live, I can find myself focused, like looking at people, physical tells and whatnot. But online is just clicking buttons, and to me, after a while, it got really boring really fast.
Interesting.
And I just found it not interesting at all. Yeah.
So, okay, well, you do play the odd tournament here or there. When you do play a tournament, why is that? I mean, like, you're obviously mostly cash games all the time, but every so often you decide to hop in. So what is it that gives you that feeling that I want to give it a try? Yeah, live tournaments.
Oh, I mean, I just started playing that because I played some normal hold'em tournaments, like dailies and stuff like that, and before I got into mixed games, I mostly started Omaha 8 or better. And then I just decided to take a shot at Omaha 8 or better tournament. That's the one at the Caesars where I finished 5th. And I liked it a lot. And ever since, and after that, I jumped into the, at the time, the 3060 Omaha 8 or better cash game at the Bellagio.
Yeah.
And that's what kickstarted my whole non-hold'em thing, and just took it off from there.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, talking about those levels and the levels you currently play at, usually people don't jump in, I could call it kind of the deep end, or at least the middle of the pool. Usually people kind of tiptoe in. How did you sort of first start playing poker? Was it like penny stuff, home games when you were
Oh
growing
no,
up?
like I had zero micromanagement as far as that's concerned. Like I just jumped into whatever game I felt was big enough to make money, I guess. It didn't matter at the time because I was
Uh-huh.
single, had a job, I guess. Didn't really care. So
Right.
so just especially like because I think at the time, a couple years after that, Venetian started their DSAC tournaments,
Right.
and they started having a lot of mixed tournaments as well as for like Omaha 8 better,
Right.
OE, horse, and stuff like that. So I was able to play almost all of those whenever it was available. So
Sure. And then I get the whole thing of, not necessarily having dependents and, single, that sort of thing. You can kind of, play around. You don't have, too many worries on your head.
right.
But at any point, like, was it this feeling of, you wanted to pursue anything else as a career, or, at some point you said, oh, this is what I want to
So
do. I want to become a professional poker player.
I think I've always had that, but I've never actually took it seriously until maybe like 7, 8 years ago.
Hmm.
And I've always like felt like I can do this, but like it just didn't have the motivation at all. Just I
Okay.
would just play more for fun
So what was
and
the
more for just
motivation?
more for just either fun or just being a degenerate either way.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, didn't have much control over myself at the time.
So what
As far as
happened
like
7, 8 years ago? What was that turning point for you?
no, got married and had bills. I'm like, okay, well, I actually have to make money now, so
Right.
started to take it more serious. And
That's
then at the time
interesting.
I was, at the time I was, still working at Venetian, and I felt like, okay, this job thing isn't going to work out because I feel like it doesn't make enough money to live comfortably. So
Mhm.
that's when I decided to start playing full time to get a lot more serious.
And what had you been doing at the Venetian?
I was there for quite a while actually. I started off dealing, and then I started flooring, running tournaments, and did some dealer training over there
Mhm.
for maybe about 7, 8 years.
So the industry was always sort of attractive to you. You like being around poker, that sort of thing.
Right, right, right. Well, no, the whole reason why I got into poker is because initially I was in table games, casino and the pits, but then all the cigarette smoking and stuff like that, I can't take it. Like, it just can't breathe to me. So I
Mhm.
found out that there's no smoking in the poker room, so I just ventured in one day and kind of liked it, so stay there.
Wow. That is a very interesting entry into poker.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Unbelievable. And you said just sort of jumping in to higher stakes games, you must have realized though, if everyone's playing lower stakes, then there's higher stakes games that perhaps like the skill level is very, very high. How did you sort of catch up? Lots of people just sort of work their way up over time, but if you're jumping into stakes 30, 60 like that, was it just, trial by
Well,
fire and a lot of losing first?
no, not really. I actually ran really well when I
Mm.
jumped into 30-60, which kind of like gave me overconfidence. And
Hmm.
obviously I didn't learn as much as I should have because I didn't lose much.
Right.
So I felt like I was playing right when I probably wasn't. And it wasn't until like after that where I lost a bunch, and then I started realizing, okay, this is not really working. What am I doing wrong? And I started playing. I didn't even know there were other games at the time. I thought that was the only Omaha 8 better game. I didn't know those games at the Orleans. I didn't
Right.
know at that time Venetian didn't have the A16 with a 1530 Omaha yet. So
Right.
and then after we started getting those games at Venetian, then I started playing there a lot more, and then I started learning the game a lot more, and you know, adjust my game accordingly to whoever's playing.
So it was learning primarily through experience, or did you study in any way? Did
Oh
you?
no, I've never studied. Like
Okay.
I'm terrible at studying. In
Mhm.
school or poker or reading, no, I can't do that. I just all from experience, from watching, hand over hand over hand, how people play certain hands, why they play certain hands, just learning from that. Mostly a lot of it's feel really.
Right. That's interesting because, that was a very common answer when you ask poker players that question in the 80s, in the
Yeah,
90s, as far as
yeah,
no limit hold'em. For
right.
mixed games, you can answer that and still be a top tier player. Why is that? Why is there not so much theory and poker training out there
Well,
for mixed
because
games?
a lot of it's not solved, right? A lot of the mixed games aren't solved. Whereas now, like, in the limit hold'em, or especially limit hold'em, it's theoretically solved, right? So
Yeah.
it's all studying, charts, ranging, and whatnot, whatever all those fancy terms are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't really do all that. You have some of that stuff in mixed games, but not to the point of like no limit hold'em or hold'em in general.
Sure. So, the story goes about, the guys from, Negreanu, Ivy, Allen Cunningham, like John Juanda, that area, that era, sorry, like also that was a time where there wasn't too much training material out there, not many books. So
Right.
they kind of learned from each other. There was a group. Is that something that happened for you? Because, it's kind of a tight-knit
Not
mixed game
really.
community.
Yeah, not really. I never really talked to anybody about poker
Mhm.
until recently, actually, where I started playing more. I started making more friends within the poker community that play, people who play for a living and whatnot.
Yeah.
Then I started talking to people about hands and whatnot, but I've never really had a group of people that I discussed it with. I have friends I play with, but like
Mhm.
we all took it more of a as a joke than anything else. Like if I lost a hand in a tournament, we laugh about it. We don't actually learn or discuss why that happened or
Right.
what I played wrong or whatnot. So
Right. Okay. Interesting. So,
yeah, my learning curve is very, very not steep like a lot of people's. My learning curve is very flat.
right.
So,
That's interesting. So you say, well, okay, so there was a turning point though, 7, 8 years ago, where you became, as you said, more responsible with that sort of a thing,
yeah.
bankroll management. Obviously, you're a seasoned pro at this point. There's a lot of folks who might want to dabble a little bit in mixed games, but don't necessarily either have the bankroll to or want to jump in like you did straight into the higher stakes, 330, 60 and up. Those are notoriously tough games to beat, especially if you're just starting out. For those who are just starting, let's say they're starting at a 4-8, very, low
Right.
stakes type of stuff. How or what advice would you give as far as moving up in stakes? How do you know you're ready?
If you're just playing live, I would say, once you string, you feel like you can tell at a point where you start winning consistently and starting to build, I guess, a bankroll at that point for whatever stakes you're playing. And I would suggest, watching the tighter players and seeing how they play and why they place certain hands and what they show down at the end, and try and not really imitate that, but like work that into your game. And because everyone knows technically, tighter is better supposedly, but yeah, like even like the lower stakes games now, they're still it's not easy because mixed games is a very high variance game.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of swings regardless of how you play, really. So, but yeah, I would say watch some of the tighter players and just learn from them.
Interesting.
Watch, also really it makes things you really got to keep your emotions in check because you take a lot of beats. There's a lot of 1-outers, 2-outers all the time, consistently, and just because you use all the cards in the deck all the time. So
Right.
you can't let those get to you because it just happens consistently
Right.
over time.
And that can be dangerous because if you stay in your seat, then your chips will
Yeah,
start disappearing. Yeah.
right, exactly. Don't tilt.
Important advice there. Okay.
It just happens.
So would you say, well, because of what you said, is it fair to say that anyone who's playing, 30, 60, 40, 80, like that kind of stuff, if they're playing that and up, they would go to 8-16 or a 4-8 and completely destroy the game, run over the table? Or is there, also variance there?
I would say it's more likely they will lose in those games unless you're just so nitty that you cannot take playing loose. But like from my understanding, the way I think at least, like if I jumped into a 4-8 or 8-16 games, I would want to play more hands and I would want to try to snow a lot more, try a lot of different moves because at this level it doesn't affect me, financially. So I can try all this stuff to see how people react to it and maybe implement later on and whatnot.
For sure. And for those who don't know, it's a lot, most folks are, of the no limit hold'em persuasion. Can you explain just briefly what is snowing? What does that mean?
Snowing is, I guess, the mixed game version of bluffing, but not really bluffing. It's bluffing with information. Like you hold, let's say, for example, in deuces 7, you hold a lot of the deuces in 7, or you're seeing a lot of the deuces and 7s, and you decide to, just hold on to them and stay pat and to, because they can't have that good of a hand
Right.
if you have all these cards, and then you just barrel through and hope that they don't make a hand, because generally they won't even call you down with a bat 9 or a bat 10. So
Right. Even though they're getting 10-1 or more on
right,
the last bet.
there's always odds in mixed games anyways, as
Right.
far as calling down. So you can't really factor that in.
Right.
If I found out, you shouldn't really factor that in anymore, because you always have odds to call.
Right. That's true. No, it's just interesting, though. Folks who are not into mixed games don't necessarily know the difference and nuances. That's an important thing to realize. And, always trying to grow poker, not just Hold'em. It's important to sort of introduce people to these sort of, niche differences. So I think it's fair to say that with regard to mix, there are very few, relatively speaking, like regular games that are being played at your current level, 80, 160 and up. Some of the guys in that game we have interviewed here on the CardsChat podcast before. Ali Najad, he was episode number 60. Kevin Gerhardt was episode 84. Nathan Gamble, episode 59. So we're going to get that whole group eventually.
Sure.
I wonder, it's a great group. It's wonderful. As I mentioned, I had the good fortune to play in that game a couple times. How did that game originally come together? And also, Resorts World is about a year and a quarter old.
Year and 3 months, yeah.
Yeah. So, did that game exist somewhere else prior to Resorts World?
Yeah, it did. It originated when because of all the mixed games at the time were at Bellagio, 80, 60 and higher, 48 and whatnot, and Crazy Mike has started his, I guess you can say, private-ish game there, where he had his 8160 mix with mandatory straddles and triple antes and triple brilliants and whatnot. And a lot of those 8160 players did not want to play in his game. And Ali kind of felt like, okay, well, there's a certain core group of players that don't want to play in this game. Maybe we can try and move those players to a different location and start our own game there, because they don't want to deal with Crazy Mike a lot of times, because they don't like, I guess, his attitude or just his demeanor on the table. So we actually we had a group of maybe like 7 or 8 guys that we moved to the Win. I think it was 2018 or 19. I can't remember which one. It was like a year before COVID, and we started playing at the Win. And starting right after the World Series, I believe it was in August. And then we played there until COVID hit. And then right after COVID, we came back to the Win. And Molly had actually made a deal, I guess not really a deal, but he had actually intended on moving the game to the Resorts when it reopens.
Right.
And that's what we did. A lot of guys don't agree with it, because they thought that the Win was treating us really nice, which they were, and it's a really, really good room. But he wanted to move the game there because a lot of the staff was actually going over from the Win to the Resorts. So we actually ended up moving the game there. And better or worse, I don't know if it's better or not, but the room we have right now is really, really good. It's very private. We get we're behind the glass room and everything, and we get to pretty much do whatever you want. We have control of the TVs, got music and whatnot. So it's actually pretty good.
Yeah. And
can't complain, obviously.
Yeah, and like you're a regular there, and I've mentioned, just from my outsider's perspective, obviously it's a game that not just full of world-class players such as yourself, but what I loved about it is you're all really nice people. There's just a genuinely...
we try to keep that mentality within our group, because we don't want people who are very disruptive. Well, there's some guys that are, as you know, but for the most part, all of our guys are very nice and inviting to the game, and we play very friendly in a way, not like to the point of collusion or anything like that, but just friendly, like we just, if someone plays the wrong game or plays the wrong game, put in multiple bets, doesn't realize that he's playing the wrong game, we let him take the bets back, and stuff like that. Just very friendly.
That's
and
a big thing.
Try and keep that friendly environment, and people will like that. And obviously people who generally have an attitude when they're playing, maybe they would change their attitude in our game, because everyone is just so nice.
That's great. No, I noticed also, when I was there, you offered me, you had like a big bag of candy and chocolates, it's like a
Yeah.
typical thing, any reason what you decide to do that for?
No, I'm no. That actually started when we had a big Halloween and we had a lot of leftover candy, and I decided to bring it one day in this big bag, and everyone's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll take some," and it just started a trend, and then I just started buying candy. So it's like Halloween 24/7 now. So
Uh-huh.
plus we have now at the resort we have our own little cabinet full of snacks too.
Oh,
So
exciting.
yeah, so we fill it up like once every few months and whatever from Costco, and
Very
people
nice.
like that. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. So what is like, from a, just a strategic standpoint, someone at the end of the day, you're having fun, you're enjoying yourself, it's a good group of guys, good group of friends. You welcome the occasional visitor once in a while, you get your candy, but you all kind of have to make a living. Like I said, it's your bread and butter. How is it competing against basically the same people, the same group of people, day after day, as opposed to new people? Like, what are the strategic, I don't know, changes that you have to make, and shifting gears and things like that? I'm not obviously not asking for specific strategy, but just generally speaking, when you're facing the same players all the time, in order to win, what types of things do you have to keep in mind and do?
Well, you want to get used to their tendencies and their tells. Well, tendencies become their tells, I guess, in hand, and you also have to mix up your play a bit because everyone, our group, our core group at least, they all know each other so well that
Right.
we have to change up our play and mix it up a bit. As
Mhm.
far as newcomers and people from out of town, we have to. I mean, at least for me, I have to sometimes calm down light just to see how they're playing,
Mhm.
and just you just have to adjust to whoever comes in, and I don't know, something
Okay.
like
Yeah,
that.
that's fair. What are some of the, I guess, unique things, quirks? I mean, you've mentioned also like just, one example of everyone just sort of being nice. I remember they're also there, you kind of sometimes draw cards once in a while, like who's going to pay the time rake or something like that. What other sorts of unique quirks are there in that specific game that you may not find in other mixed games, either around Las Vegas or the rest of the United States?
Well, as far as like Mexicans go, paying time, um, the way we do it is on a new dealer. We just there's either in stud will be up cards, and draw games will be the stub, or in board games will be the flop. Whichever seat comes out, that's whoever pays the time for the whole down,
Mhm.
and that's actually very common with all mixed games that
And why
has a
is
time
that?
rake. That has a time rake at least.
Mhm.
It's faster
Mhm.
instead of everyone putting up chips and then they have to make change for everybody and then put them together. You waste time paying time, and we want to get as many hands out as we can, so we just do it this way. And at the same time, in any game that pays time or hard, they all do this. They all have their own way of doing this. At least not everyone does it the same way.
Mhm.
And for us, at least, even the rack, we don't even go into the rack. We don't let the dealers make any change out of that rack. Like any change that comes out, either me or Kevin or somebody will have all the change, and we'll just make change for people as the
Mhm.
game goes, or whatever they need, whatever we can do to speed the game up.
Right.
More
Just
hands
to
is
see as
better.
many
So
hands per hour per down, that
yeah,
sort of thing.
because mixed games are just inherently slower than all other games.
Sure. I mean, you mentioned, Omaha High Low is your favorite game. Generally speaking, high low or any sort of split games, they do take longer. But so I guess, how do you comprise the mix? How many games are in the mix? Does it change from time to time, or is it the same?
It has when we first started a game at the Win, we had a core set of games that we always play. I think at the time it was 13 games.
Mhm.
Ollie had decided that that's the set of games that we're always going to play no matter what. Because as you might probably know, one of the biggest issues with mixed games is when you start a game, people argue about what games they want to play and
Yes.
whatnot. And say, I don't want to play this, I want to play that. And
Uh-huh.
everyone starts fighting over it. Next thing you know, there's no game because people leave.
Right.
So the way we do it is just, this is our game, this is it. You either play it or you don't. You know,
Okay.
and that core set of games that we have has changed over time a little bit. We've added more games. We've changed some of the games. Like sub games are interchangeable over time depending on what happens. And like the World Series comes, we might take out all the super games and put in like Raz and Stud Ada Better and whatnot. So instead
And
of
I
all
guess
supers.
the key is, every orbit, changing from a stud to a draw to a flop and then repeating that, or is it okay to have, like I'm thinking, let's say someone wants to set up a home game or something like that, and
Mhm.
they want to put some mixed games in there. Like, what sort of order of games would you recommend, or it doesn't really matter?
I don't like things like two back-to-back flop games. I don't think it matters as long as I just think it's more important if you have like the 5 card games separated from the 4 card games as well as the stud games. You just don't want that the same number of cards back to back or have stud back to back,
Mhm.
because then people can, if it's a friendly game, you don't want people to misplay, wrong games, play the wrong
Right.
game or whatnot.
Right.
If you have a hostile game, I guess you can call it, you want to put all the 5 card games back to back, hoping that someone will make a mistake.
Right.
But we're not looking for that. So
Sure. Okay. And just it's again, it's a very friendly home game type of vibe there. And typically in home games, there's like some ribbing, there's maybe some prop bets or stuff like
oh
that.
yeah,
Does that happen with you guys as well?
yeah. Actually, we used to have to do a lot of. We used to have a lot of prop bets. Like me and Kevin used to have a lot. Like we did props every single time we played together, and it didn't really get out of hand, but it became more of a focus than the game itself.
Interesting.
And so I actually stopped playing a lot of the props just because that, I felt like I was more focused on props than the game itself. And it got to the point where I felt annoyed at myself. So I actually opted out of some of the props. Now we just play a lot of some of the stuff props and whatnot. Some people jump in, some people might not, but the props have cooled down a bit.
Okay.
So,
Interesting. Yeah. I think during the first season of High Stakes Poker, and a lot of those guys, like they were playing when it's 200, 400, whatever it was at the time. And there was a lot of props going on, so much so that it distracted from the television show that they were trying to record.
The actual game itself, right?
Yeah, well, that's very
and
interesting.
The props were actually probably playing bigger than the game itself. So
right. Exactly.
Yeah, which is why they were so focused on that.
Sure. So, I mean, you've lived in Las Vegas for your whole life?
No, I moved here for college. So
Okay.
I came here when I was 20 years old.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I've been
there
for
quite
19 years. Yeah,
that's
19,
quite a
20
while
years,
already. We said you're a staple in that game, and occasionally you play tournaments. Obviously, the WSOP is a big important time. I'm wondering though, do you ever travel for cash games elsewhere because they're good? And I'm asking this question because it's known, back in the day, the Doyle Brunson Texas Road Gambler era,
Right.
they went where there was a good game. We'll go to Biloxi for the weekend, or those sorts of things. Does that happen in general at this 80-60 level, and for you specifically?
Yeah, it did for a while. I actually stopped traveling for poker since I had my son, because I can't really get out anymore. But before then, I was going to Arizona to Talking Stick. They have a good mixed game there. I went to LA a lot. Not even during tournaments, just for the cash games, like Hollywood Park back then had a good Omaha Elderberry game. They have a 2040 OE at the time. There's many options. There were some good games in Colorado, Blackhawk, that I went to. So
what makes a good game? What are you searching for?
Just action, I guess. Games that have a lot of action. I mean, I know a lot. I knew a lot of people in those games, and I'll ask them like, how the games are, and they're like, yeah, games are good. There's a guy in town that wants to play. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can head down for a weekend or whatever. So
very interesting world of that nature. It's like you gotta have to have someone planted at each place, like let you know, hey, where are there good games? It's not like there's it's like on Poker Atlas. It's not like it's going to have a little thing next to it saying this one's a good game. You kind of just have to know.
Well, that's the thing with the normal hold'em is like you just go anywhere. You can go anywhere and play normal hold'em cash games like 1, 2, 2, 5, 5, 10, and they may be good, they may be not. You never know. But like as far as like mixed games go, there's probably 1 or 2 mixed games in almost every major city now, and you can pretty much go almost anywhere, like Texas, Florida, New York. They're all over.
Right. So you mentioned before, let's go back to the sort of strategic aspect. You never necessarily learn from books. It's always from playing. It's always from experience. You said, you're not playing online because live, the physical tells, that sort of a thing is very important, for the mix. anything else that if someone wants to go ahead and jump into it, that they should be striving to perfect, that's, I guess, sort of unique to mixed games as opposed to Hold'em, that they should be more focused on?
Well, like you said, you just gotta stay really focused. You gotta watch what hands certain people play, because it's very important, I guess. It depends on which kind of mixed games. If you play a horse, for example, it's become so common now that you don't have to pay too much attention because a lot of it's very straightforward. Like especially limit hold'em, Omaha 8 or better. Like people consider Omaha 8 or better a very boring game now. So most people can just wait for hands and whatnot. It has become kind of boring. But as far as like the draw games and new variant of games like draw Maha and whatnot, you have to pay attention to the hands people play and how they play them, and really try and like work that into your game. And because it's still limit poker either way, and every bet that you save is a bet earned still. That has not gone away. So you really have to, like, I guess, tighter in a way.
Okay.
I don't know, something like that.
How do you, I mean, beyond, obviously, especially for cash game players, the ultimate success is measured by, are you a winning player? Are you winning, a certain number of, big blinds per hour, that sort of a thing.
Right.
For yourself, though, is there any particular measure of success? Do you kind of go over after every session, oh, I should have done this, should have done that, and, try to improve in that way, or specific goals you try to meet?
I used to do that a lot when I played Hold'em, because the flop never changes, the turn never changes, the river never changes. It's always the same. So you can say, I should have done this, or I should have done that. But in mixed games, it's a little bit different, because a lot of times, depending on what you do, the rest of the streets, all the draws change, and you can't, unless you fish and find out exactly what happens the rest of the hand, you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So I don't really say like, I should have done that, or I should have done this better, or I should have played that instead. Like I try not to be results oriented, because I just know that if I play like the way I play, hopefully, with lower variance at least, over time, I should win.
Right.
And if I'm going through like a rough patch where I'm losing every day, I just assume it's just due to variance, because it's just such a high variance game. As far as limit poker goes.
Sure. Oh, very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's like, again, so it's so unique and different than the regular, though I guess it's the more common conversations you have with, those who are mostly playing no limit hold'em and tournaments in particular. But we do have to talk about one tournament, obviously very important tournament to you, the 10K horse. We mentioned that, you won your first bracelet, close to $500,000. I don't know if I actually officially congratulated you for it, but congratulations still.
Thank you.
It's a big thing.
Appreciate it.
It represents close to half of your career winnings. That's a pretty big deal. In what way, if at all? Now, again, I don't want to like assume or anything. Again, a big chunk of change. Does that change your life at all, or not?
No, not really. Well, first of all, because I didn't have 100% of myself, so but even if I did, I don't think it would change much, because I'm actually a very easygoing person, so I don't need a lot of stuff to change my life really. So I'm pretty happy with what I have right now. So whatever I make or whatever I don't make, it's okay. I'm fine with
Okay.
either way.
And just sort of, how about as a professional? Was it, I don't know, again, a lot of the guys we mentioned, the guys you play with, they've got their bracelets in their trophy cabinets. And, now you got your first one. Was there sort of like a monkey you're trying to get off your back a little bit?
I wouldn't say it was a monkey or anything, but like, I've never really thought of it as a goal. Although obviously, every poker player wants to win a bracelet, but this was actually the first year that I decided that I want to try and win a bracelet before I turn 40. And after I said that, I realized, okay, that means that I have to win one this year, because I'm turning 40 next year before the World Series starts. I was like, okay, that was not a very good goal, so I didn't really think much about it. And then it actually happened. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can cross my goal off if you consider it a goal or not. But but as far as like wanting to win a bracelet, like every player wants to win a bracelet. I mean, it's incredibly hard. You got to run so well for so long, and if it happens, you got to run well. You got to play well. If you get there, you got to make the best of it. So.
Right. I mean, I'm almost wondering, like, to what extent is there variance? Because I guess, when you're playing at a 10K horse, you don't have any like Cinderella stories necessarily. You got to know the games, you got to know what you're doing. You have to be at least a certain level of proficiency. And I imagine, when you get to a certain level of playing the game, I don't even know how much of an edge there is. Maybe some guys play this game better or that game better, but
right.
To what degree does it just boil down to, okay, luckily I got the right cards and went on a sun run for a couple days?
That really depends, because you can just sun run the entire thing and just win. It's definitely possible. I've seen guys where, for example, the first tournament that I cashed that we talked about earlier, the one at Caesars, the guy that won that, he literally played every hand since I started playing with him, like 2 or 3 tables to go. He played every single hand, and when we got to the final table, he had like 80% of the chips in play.
Wow.
And he played every hand. He got a piece of the pot every hand, didn't matter what he did. So you can definitely just sun run your way to a bracelet, and that's happened before. It's definitely going to happen again. But as far as knowing all the games and whatnot, it's not just knowing the games. You gotta know how your opponent plays that game too, and try and not really outplay them, but like just use their tendencies and exploit them to your advantage.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. And that, and also I guess it's not just how they play in general, but maybe that, noticing that they've switched gears or doing something differently in this specific tournament, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Like, for example, when I got heads up with Craig, I started noticing that he was limping a lot of buttons. He was limping into a lot of stud hands too, and just to see 4th Street and whatnot. And I went along with it for a while, and we played very low variance poker for like the first level of heads up, and it was actually working in his favor for a little while, and he got the chip lead for a little bit. And towards the end of the level, I kind of got I started getting, a little lucky and hitting some flops, hitting a couple of gut shots here and there, and got the chip lead back. And then that's when I decided after the next level, I'm just going to start, upping the variance.
Right.
And hopefully he doesn't adjust to it well. I don't know if he did or not. And, but I ran pretty well. So I was able to win a lot of key pots.
For sure.
To get him down. And yeah, to get him crippled down to, he has to make a stand. So.
Right. I know our community questions, there's someone who asked specifically about that. So we'll dive a little bit more deeply into that very soon. I've just got a couple more questions of my own before we move into the community questions. Well, you said the win doesn't necessarily change your life, but, even if you don't have all of yourself, it's a nice chunk of change. Was there any splurge, anything cool or exciting you did to celebrate?
No, not really. I haven't bought anything with it yet. I thought about buying new golf clubs, but I kind of feel like that's a waste of money. So not really.
How often do you play golf?
Before the World Series, I played a lot because I had a prop bet. And now, because it's too hot right now, so I'm waiting for the heat to go down a little bit before I start playing again.
Okay.
So I'll probably play like 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay, nice.
Try to, so yeah,
that's good. Good recreational activity. And my last question, we've been very into what you do at the felt, poker, strategy, all that kind of stuff. You mentioned you're married, you're a dad. So what's sort of family life like? What's your day to day when you're not playing poker?
Pretty much the same every day. Just I had to wake up early. I committed myself to taking my son to school every morning, or try to my best to. So my wife works at home most of the time now, so I wake up, take him to school, come back. Right now, I just go back to sleep because it's too hot outside.
Yeah,
nothing to do. So, but
sure.
Once the weather cools down, I'm going to try and play golf every morning if I can.
Nice.
And we usually try and get our game going by the afternoon. So cool. If it doesn't go, then I just stay home, pick up my son from school, and hang out with him for the rest of the night. So
nice. How old is he, if I can ask?
5. He just started
Wonderful.
kindergarten.
Very nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
And what else do you guys do for fun when you hire the babysitter to come over?
No, I've never hired a babysitter, and I don't
In
plan
5
on doing that.
years.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
That's surprising. I mean,
No, I mean, I'm a father of 3, and every so often we just needed a night out for ourselves, just to go out to dinner.
Well, yeah, sure. I think in that 5 years, I've had a night out to ourselves maybe twice.
Wow.
But yeah, my sister-in-law, she's always willing to take my son in for the night if we wanted to. So, but
That's very nice.
no,
Always good to have family nearby.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right, excellent. All right, well, we'll now switch to the segment of the show. It's always important, both at and away from the felt. Got to change gears. We're going to turn to our Cards Chat community to see what questions you guys wanted to ask our guests. We do have a dedicated thread on the Cards Chat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. I love this name, Gutshot Gus. It's a name I've never seen before. Thank you very much, Gutshot Gus, for sending in this question. And I mentioned, Andrew, that there would be something more specific about your win. First, Gutshot Gus says, congrats on winning the 10K horse at the WSOP. With 3 players left, it was you, Craig Chait, and Philip Long. Philip made a run, and he could have been your heads-up competition for the win. It ended up being you and Craig heads up, and you closed it out with an Omaha high-low hand, which is your favorite game to play. How significant was it to win in specifically Omaha high-low?
It actually wasn't significant at all, to be honest. Like, I didn't really care which game I won it in.
Mm-hmm.
Being that it was Omaha high-low, maybe it was a little bit to my advantage because I have a lot of experience in that game as far as like heads up and whatnot. So, but as far as which game, it really didn't matter to me. All that mattered to me was like all the chips.
Okay,
So
nice.
it doesn't matter which game.
Well, I'll just follow up specifically.
End goal is the same, so.
Right. Well, I'll just follow specifically. Why is Omaha high-low your favorite game? Any particular reason?
Well, that's just the game that I started my whole mixed game thing with. So,
nice.
And like I said, I started the 3060 at Bellagio, and I just fell in love with that game, and I try to learn how to play that game in every possible way. So
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay, one more from Gutshot Gus. We will allow you to take a time bank on this one if you want. If you had a choice, would you rather have played Philip instead of Craig heads up for the win?
Oh, no. As far as skill goes, it really doesn't matter. I really don't care who I play against heads up. It could have been any one of the 5 or 4, I guess. It really doesn't matter to me. It's definitely possible that I have less of a chance of winning against like maybe John Racner or Bryce or somebody else, but I really want to get heads up with Craig because we share a lot of mutual friends, and I just knew that it would have been a really fun final table, and which obviously it was. And
yeah, that's a hell of a winner's photo. You got like your whole group behind you. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was really fun because like, people who were closer to him were behind his rail, people who were closer to me were behind my rail, and people who we both, were close to, they were in the middle. So it was a really, really good environment. And
awesome.
I know if I was playing with Philip heads up, we wouldn't have had that environment. So
okay.
It would have been a lot more serious, which is fine, but I would like have fun. So with Craig, I knew it would have been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, you certainly, when you won, you had a lot of people congratulating you. So it's pretty cool. It's always good to have friends supporting you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got Crystals. Thank you very much, Crystals, one of our regulars who has the following questions for you, Andrew. The 2022 WSOP was a good series for you, considering you won over $500,000. You won your first bracelet. You pushed your overall lifetime winnings over $1 million. Aside from winning the bracelet, what was the most memorable part of the series for you?
Aside from winning the bracelet. But I might need a timing for this one.
Okay. It's good you hold on to them. That's good.
Yeah. The one that comes up immediately was during the main event, Money Bubble. I knew that my friend Scott Abrams was on the final table of the PLO 8 or better. And sorry, the eight or better mix.
Okay.
But I didn't know he was in the same room I was. So on
Oh.
the first hand of the money bubble in the main event, I was sitting just on the table, and it was taking a very long time. I'm just sitting there, I'm getting bored, and I found out my buddy Nick was in the room, so I walked over to him, all the way on the other side of the room. We talked for a little bit, and I realized every hand was taking like 10 to 15 minutes. The hand was taking like 10 to 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, Jesus. And then, so I walked back, and then when I walked back, I noticed Scott was playing his final table right in the middle of the room. I was like, oh, sweet. So I just walked over there, and I started sweating him. They're like, hey, you made it. I was like, I didn't know he was here, or else I'd be here already. So after that, I think what was it? The bubble probably lasted like 5 or 6 hands, I think.
Yeah, it was a while.
And every time we play a new hand, I just folded right away, and I walked over to the table, and I just sweated him for the next like 10 minutes and whatnot. So it was
That's
very
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
That's a great memory to have. I like that. Good
Yeah.
question, Crystals. Great answer, Andrew. All right. Next one, what we have here. Okay. What is your poker goal for the next World Series of Poker next year?
Next year, my first thought was to defend the 10K championship,
Nice.
which would be pretty cool. Obviously win another bracelet, maybe 2, hopefully. That'll be pretty cool too. As far as actual goals go, don't really have one. Just trying not to break too many tournaments, I guess. I don't know.
Manage the variance.
Try and run well. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Chica Bonita has got some questions for you also. Thank you, Chica Bonita. I like this. This is a great question. You've been playing poker for so long, Andrew. What allows you to keep your love for the game after so many years?
That's a good question. I've never really known why I like the game of poker so much. It's just so fascinating to me, and it's always changing. As far as like, I started playing Hold'em and Normal Hold'em and Limit Hold'em, and it got boring to me really quickly. And then that's when I discovered Mix. That's when I jumped into that Omaha tournament and sparked the whole mix game thing. And then I went to started playing some of the 6-12 mix game with Kendall and their group and some of that. But I just find poker fascinating. Like, I have a really poor memory, and all my friends know this, as far as like remembering things and whatnot. But like, for some reason, I can just remember everything about poker. Like, if I think back and remember a lot of key hands that I played from, like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And as far as real life goes, I can't remember anything. So I don't know. It's something about poker that just clicks with me.
That's great. That's a genuine passion from the heart. That's good. More from Chica Bonita. Andrew, could you remember a player who was really difficult for you to beat, or perhaps whom you couldn't beat and would like to beat in the future?
That I couldn't beat.
Someone was
Not
sort of
really,
holding over you, I guess.
I mean, there's always been players that held over me, but I know that's just like, it just happens. I don't care about beating anybody, really. It's just like, every hand is a new hand, right? So, if he holds over me for the next 10 years, as long as I beat everyone else, I can care less.
That's a good trade-off, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Next one from Chica Bonita. Who do you admire among your fellow poker players, and why?
Who do I admire? I've always thought about this, like who I look up to as a poker player. I mean, I don't really have anybody, because I never really read anyone's books or study anyone's, videos or whatnot. So I never really looked up to anybody. And it's kind of like, who's your favorite, sports model or whatever. Like, I just don't have one.
Okay.
I don't really look up to anybody,
but not in a negative way. It's just,
not in a negative way.
Right.
I just don't find that, like, I don't find that to help you in any kind of way. I try to, like, instead of looking up to somebody, I try and become that person if I can. And I think it's a harder way to get there, but you create your own path that way, at least.
How about outside of poker?
Outside of poker?
Yeah, that's my question.
Same thing. Like, I don't really have anyone I look up to. I don't know. I'm kind of weird like that. I don't really, like, it's just say a celebrity walks by, and let's say Dwayne Johnson or whoever walks by, and some people like gush and whatnot, like, oh my god, and like I never get like that. I don't really care. I mean, it's just he's just another person, and I'm sure he wants to be treated like another person, like a normal person too. So the way I've gone about my whole life, like,
Interesting.
just trying to be normal.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. Oh, here's a fun one. Do you have any pets?
Pets?
Yes.
I did not. I don't have one. I don't have one anymore. I used to have. I used to have cats, and then I found out I'm very allergic to cats, and
Okay.
I can no longer have cats.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's Chica Bonita. We've got one more question asker here. Always with the creative questions, our good friend Acid Burn FX. Thank you very much for sending these in. Acid Burn FX wants to know, Andrew, if you could do one thing with a 0% chance of failure, what would it be and why?
One thing with a 0% chance of failure.
No matter what, you will not fail.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. I told you, lots of right field questions here.
Yeah, I mean, I would just have to go for all of it, right? Like, whatever it is to get it all. I guess I don't know. I don't want to be greedy because I'm not a greedy person.
Okay.
Like, I have a 0% chance of failing. All right, I make number 2.
No problem. And we'll use this opportunity while Andrew is thinking to say thank you again to everyone so much for listening to this CardsChat podcast and for sending in your questions. Especially if you haven't sent in questions before, like Gutshot Gus, you're almost guaranteed that they will get the shout out and read on the next episode.
I mean, as far as poker players go, I would assume everyone would say playing the main event with like 100% chance of winning, right?
Okay.
But that would be the not obvious answer, but that'll be a common answer. I mean, I don't know. Because I already won a bracelet, I think that kind of kills the question for me. Because if I haven't won a bracelet yet, I would be like, well, I'll play one of my favorite events and just win it because I would really want to win the event. But
maybe something outside of poker that you've always wanted to do or something like that, but had a fear of not succeeding. Is there something like that in your life?
Maybe more a fantasy kind of thing, like flying.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I always thought it'd be cool if I can fly. So if I have a 0% chance of failing and just fly everywhere, that'd be pretty cool.
Is there somewhere you would fly to?
Yeah, everywhere, I guess. to and from a poker game. I don't need a car anymore.
That's awesome. Save on gas, that's for sure. Okay, 2 more from Acid Burn FX. What do you believe is the most important invention in history and why?
Most important invention in history. Well, I always said that like Kleenex tissues are like the greatest invention ever. But that was more of a joke.
Okay.
But like a serious joke because I have a lot of allergies, so like I go through Kleenex during allergy season like crazy. So to me that was like the greatest invention ever. But
I think that's fair. It's allowed to be a subjective answer.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been my answer for that. Like I've always said like Kleenex is like the greatest invention ever. So
that's very interesting. I love these questions because it doesn't always have to be about poker. You learn a lot about someone, or lots like little tidbits. Our last question, we'll end off with this one, Andrew. Acid Burn FX wants to know if you could create any law that's applicable to everyone else but not to you, what would it be and why?
Any law that's applicable
everyone else has to stick to, but you do not. You are immune to prosecution or something.
That's not really fair, though, is it?
It's a hypothetical. It's a lot of things almost.
Geez. I guess. That one I'm gonna need a lot of time on because I have no
Okay.
idea. I have no idea. I've never even thought about stuff like that before, so I don't even know where to begin to think. Because like I don't really care about doing a lot of things, so I don't even know where to start thinking stuff like that.
I think that is fair. I'm not going to necessarily put you on the spot for that one, and perhaps it gives
Well,
us a good.
it's not really a spot because I don't even know where to begin.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we can go back to the flying thing, right? Everyone cannot fly, but I can fly.
But that's not against the law.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, I forgot that part. See,
Right.
bad memory. Okay, so it has to be a law.
Like, would you be? You want to be? I want to run through red lights, for example.
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually. I was just thinking that like speeding because I drive pretty aggressive, so maybe I'm allowed to speed and no one else is, but that's kind of dangerous. So that's I don't know. I have no idea.
That's fair. We will accept that answer. You've been very awesome and forthcoming with your answers to all the other questions. So I want to thank everyone who sent in questions for Andrew Yeh to answer. And one more friendly reminder to all of you out there, go ahead, submit your questions on the CardsChat forums. We do have a dedicated thread there. And guys, please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you like the show. Andrew, before we let you go, is there anything else you want to share with the CardsChat audience?
Nothing really. Just really appreciate you guys having me on here. It's been really fun.
Oh, good.
Thanks for all the awesome questions, and it was a great interview. I loved it.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to hear you had a great time. That's my number one goal when we get on the podcast to begin with. So thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. Guys, thanks again for joining us here on the CardsChat Podcast. I'm Robbie Straczynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.